We were asked to explore what being different means, to explore an alternative perspective on life in the UK, and what we came up with was poverty. Oxfam says that 1 in 5 of the UK population live below the poverty line. That's over 12 million people right here in the UK. In media we often see how poverty affects other countries, but we wanted to focus our attention on poverty in the UK, as well as showing how it is represented in the British media.
My height makes me different.
Your interests make you different.
Being part of a culture makes you different.
Your hobbies and interests make you different.
Your social class can make you different.
How you live makes you different.
Your community makes you different.
Your financial status makes you different.
Last year, over 100,000 people in England made an application for homelessness.
According to the Department for Communities and Local Government, that's a 26% increase over the last 4 years.
My name's Trevor Palfreeman. I'm Chief Executive Officer at Adullam Homes Housing Association. Adullam provides support. It provides specialist support and housing to very vulnerable client groups.
CitySafe is a not-for-profit financial institution which is known as a credit union. We're the biggest one in Birmingham with a membership base of around 9,500 members.
When people are struggling with finances, struggling to put food on the table, the reality of when people are going to food banks or are needing help from neighbours, people's self-worth, their self-dignity often holds them back in terms of clamouring for benefit. And it's that last resort where people are often will accept what's on offer there. But I don't just see people in our society who can't feed the children, who can't afford to live. It's just we need to create fairness in our society. Poverty creates a uncertainty in life. Where how am I going to find the money for the next bill? How am I going to put the food on the table? How can I afford to pay the rent? We all like mobile phones, TVs, and it's part of our everyday life in terms of communication. But it's really hard to, if you're struggling with money, you can struggle to access money for a phone, to keep in contact with your family, to have a computer, could be very much the luxury item. Part of digital inclusion, or should we say digital exclusion, is part of the poverty of today as well.
I think it's important that people have access to affordable finance, not just locally, but on a national scale. And I think credit unions are perfectly and uniquely positioned to offer that. Access to affordable finance is one part of a bigger issue, but it's an essential part for the wider community and area. There's a genuine need within the Birmingham community for this type of financial service, and as a result, CitySafe continues to work within communities to provide that and prevent people from paying what is often referred to as a poverty premium by going to predatory lenders.
1 in 5 of the UK population are below the poverty line.
However, there are as many as 380,000 hidden homeless people in the UK in addition to that. That is almost the equivalent of all the people living in Manchester.
This could reach the 1 million mark by the year 2020.
I think poverty is increasing in the UK. It's where we're seeing the increasing demand on food banks. Certainly I work for a housing association and I've only ever worked for the housing association movement, and it's where we know how much people are struggling to pay their rent, to pay that with benefit if they can access the benefit system. So it's on the increase. People are getting more desperate, and we're making the situation harder because of the way universal credit is being rolled out. But it's where at a time when getting into work is difficult, or if people are trying to get a job as an agency, they can be on a 0 hours contract, and therefore actually being able to get regular income is hard.
We base all our loans on affordability as opposed to how that income is made. So regarding benefits, work or any other type of income, that is not part of our loan assessment. What we are able to offer is a very specific service to our members, which makes up a wider service provided by some of our partners. For example, Shelter work with the homelessness and discuss with us about making small loans available to people who've just moved into a new property.
1 in 6 children live in poverty. The proportion of households lacking items deemed necessary for life in the UK has increased from 14% in 1983 to 33% in 2012.
There are negative stereotypes. The difficulty is when people have lost hope, and if there's been a death in the family, a breakdown in the family, a breakdown in family life, people can quickly, the families fracture, people can become unwell, and when people become unwell, that the normal becomes fragmented, it's really hard for people who are living, say, on the sofa of somebody else's house or are sleeping on the park bench to actually re-engage. It's difficult for them to have regular meals. It's difficult for them to bathe, and a lot of the work is about providing a roof over somebody's head, and therefore coming back into society. So a lot of the portrayal that we have in the media of people sleeping on the park benches, people using drugs, yes, there's a reality to that, but it's where our response is to be able to enable them for people to be able to get access to doctors, to be able to see people so that people can look after their feet, after their health and their well-being, get decent meals inside them. So it's where people, when they're broken, when people live chaotic lives, it's very difficult for us in terms of our normal life, where we have, say, 3 meals a day, and in terms of showering regularly and that, and seeing the dentist and seeing the doctor. When you're in poverty, and when we're talking in absolute poverty, actually re-establishing the normality of having the support services around that we enjoy is very hard. A lot of the people who come to us, some of the support work we do from day one is getting them registered with the general practitioner, is enabling them to have access to the health services in order to regain that access to health provision. It's also about getting a bit of food on the table and gaining access to a telephone in terms of being able to ring and make contact.
I think when we're looking at the issue of representation of poverty on television programs like Benefit Street, we need to consider the political context and also the temperature in the country in terms of the economy, etc. So there's a lot of there were a lot of anxiety about the recession and the poor performance of the economy, and therefore that perhaps gave some people reason to justify portraying people on benefits or people who are less financially well off as scroungers, and I think programs like Benefit Street was trying to reflect or respond to that kind of atmosphere in the country. So I think there's two sides to it. There's the side of people's perception in terms of because of the economic situation, but then there's also the side of the reality being that the country was in recession and something needed to be done. Whether they did it correctly or not is another argument. But in terms of the media's representation, it's a combination of reflecting the feelings of people at that time, whether the feelings were right or whether the portrayal of people who were in poverty was correct or not is another discussion. But I think the media's representation was more reflective of the consciousness of the society at the time in terms of what was going on in the country.
From what we've discovered, poverty is underrepresented by the media and harshly criticised through stereotypes of benefit culture. Media representation plays a crucial role and influences public opinion on issues such as this. We hope to have shown you an alternative perspective of life in the UK.